Thank you, Greg. This is the April 7th, 2021 meeting of the Joint Review Committee. I believe that we have a quorum. I'm Robb, the chair, and we've got Ken Lufkin, the vice chair, City of Tempe Representatives Jason Comer, Lisa Roach, and Mike Burke, who's the joint representative, and from ASU, in addition to Ken Lufkin, we've got Bill Johns and Rudy Balavia. So I believe we have a quorum to proceed. Suparna, before we get started, anything that you would like to say?
No, Chairman, I just wanted to, on the record in the regular meeting, thank Mr. Balavia for attending at the last minute today. We emailed him this morning and he was available, so that was awesome. So we actually have 7 members today, so thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Rudy. Appreciate that. Tonight we have a couple of items on the agenda. The first item is the approval of some meeting minutes, some of which that go back actually to the pre-pandemic era. Should we do these? I guess we should just do these as individual items, or should we do them all together? Suparna, you have a preference on that? No, I can't hear you. I'm just.
Okay, I was
Okay.
on mute now, so obviously.
All right. Any preference as whether we do it as a bulk approval or individually?
No, Chairman, you can take it all in one motion if you wish, and if you just stated on the record the dates of the different meetings.
I will do that. All right. Under consideration, we've got the study session of March 4th, 2020, the regular meeting of March 4th, 2020, the study session of November 4th, 2020, and the study session of February 3rd, 2021. Is there a motion to approve those 4 meetings?
Chairman Robb, I make the motion to approve the meeting minutes as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Vice Chair Lufkin, second by Mike Burke. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I think I heard 7 ayes, so we will assume that motion is passed 7-0. We only have one project agenda item this evening, and that is a request for a development plan review for a new 3-story office building complex for Novus Parcel 4F, phases 1 and 2, located at 1337 East Rio Salado Parkway. The applicant is Gamage and Burnham PLC. So presumably, Manjula, you are here on behalf of the applicant, or you are the applicant. So I'll hand it off to you, Manjula.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for your record, my name is Manjula Voss, the law firm of Gamage and Burnham, 2 North Central Phoenix 85004. I am here tonight on behalf of the Wentworth Development Company. With me tonight are several people, Tim Chester and David Dixon from Wentworth, Jason Plosjay and Brant Long are here from RSP Architects. Robb Lane is also here with me. And then if you have any questions from the Catellus team, Brian Kearney and Charlie Friedrichs are on the line from Catellus. As you mentioned, we kind of went through this as a study session very briefly, the parcel in February, and Jason and I are here to give a full presentation just to show you. I think mainly you're going to see a lot of Jason and RSP team have really enhanced their renderings and a really beautiful building and some nice open space. So that's what we're going to talk a lot about. We can talk a little bit about kind of what's going on the east side of Rural. So next slide, please, Greg. So as I mentioned, went with property company, and I think many of you know or It's a Phoenix-based award-winning industrial commercial real estate company. They are the developers of Discovery Business Campus. If people have been down there at Elliott 101, it's a 136-acre business park in Southeast Tempe. Next slide, please, Greg. So this piece is the beginning, as you see here, it's the piece that's closest to the APS substation. We call it Novus Parcel 4F. We'll show you a picture of the overall parcel map that I know many of you are well familiar with. And then we can talk a little bit about this property will be built out 3 phases. We're going to talk about 2 phases tonight, and then come back as phase 3 comes online in the future. Next slide, Greg. So as I mentioned, in terms of the land use plan, and you can see this is the parcel 4F is the furthest to the east. This is part of the neighborhood. It's kind of the Rio Salado mixed use, the Rio Salado Commerce, kind of their mixed use office complex, creative office complex, sorry. And so this is, you're going to see that kind of, this sets the vision for that area. And I think we talked about, it's a really interesting, very exciting looking buildings that really excited about, kind of creative office space, adding a different kind of office presence and kind of office building to kind of the corridor that you see along the town lake. Next slide, please, Greg. So as I mentioned, we're going to have 2 3-story Class A office buildings, providing a total of 300,000 square feet of commercial office space. We have 1 building providing 8,400 square feet of amenity space for the tenants, which we'll show you. We have a large centrally located courtyard with shared seating and turf areas, 2 4-level parking garages with 1,500 that accommodate 1,530 vehicle spaces, some surface parking, which we'll talk about, and 39 bicycle spaces. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to Jason to kind of start going through the site plan. The one thing I do want to mention a little before we get there is we do have, and I know we've gotten some questions from people in the community, so let me say this. We have, as many of you know, and I know you've been out there, we have some APS power lines that are overhead of the parking lot. And we have some restrictions as to what can go kind of underneath that parking lot. And mainly it's surface parking from an APS side in terms of what you can put underneath those power lines. You'll see a similar, if you're in the area and you were at if you're in near the Starbucks, the Playa del Norte, there's a new office building that's being built in there. And you'll see that they also have surface parking because they're also limited by what they can put underneath those power lines. So I just wanted to mention that in terms of kind of the parking field that's out front. So I'm going to Jason, I'm going to turn over to you for site plan. You can walk through the site plan and then the renderings, and then we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Manjula. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and commissioners. So we'll walk through, some of the group I know was on during a study session, so is familiar with some of the design constraints and existing conditions, but we'll walk you through from Rio Salado. There is, as Manjula mentioned, the high voltage power lines that run east-west across the site. That easement has established the front zone of the site as a parking belt, essentially. So we've got kind of these bars of program as we go from the north to the south. So the first is the parking zone underneath the power lines. Within this district, we have a min and max setback. So it's the intention to create an urban street wall. While we cannot push the buildings all the way out to the street because of the easement, they are established at that easement line. So we're within the 25-foot maximum of that setback, and the building undulates along that to create even though it's not a double-sided, it does form a single-sided urban edge that engages pedestrians and connects between the buildings back out to the Dorsey alignment. So this is showing a proposed realignment of Dorsey out at the intersection of Rio Salado at the northwest corner of the site. That eventually will be a primary access point with a potential or a future signal. On the east portion of the site, there's a shared driveway as an access point there with the APS power plant. So those will be your 2 full movement access points into the site at full build out of the 3 phases. Today, the the plan being proposed is just for phase 1 and 2. Phase 3 is shown for reference. The phase lines are shown here, and the loop road and the parking out in front will be part of phase 2. So the western half of the site is phase 2 and 3. Eastern is phase 1. So we'll build sort of from the east towards the west. From the parking zone, then we have the building zone that creates that urban edge. And then south of that, between the buildings and the parking garages is a green space, an amenity zone, and a usable outdoor space. So that'll be programmed with a variety of both passive and active uses, and then is anchored by the amenity building to the south between the two garages. So that amenity building aligns with the void between the two buildings. So we have a series of these alleyways that encourage pedestrian movement through this site, as well as, you know, in the future to connect to the future development to the west. And then we're wrapped with parking garages to the south and the east to screen visibility towards the power plant, as well as provide an efficient vehicular loop along the south of the site. So employees have access to the parking garages while your visitor parking is predominantly out at the surface out front. I think that kind of hits on the, yep, thank you. So these phase boundaries illustrate a little bit more clearly. The phase 1 will be all of the frontage, or all the landscape frontage in front of both the phase 1 building and the garage will be built as part of that first phase, as well as the green space just to the south of the building. And then phase 2 is shown there in blue, and phase 3 is grayed out, kind of the L-shaped piece to the west. Thank you. So we've got a series of views here that show the building character. The inspiration for the design is really rooted in Tempe's history with brick and establishing a language at the base of the building, tying into that context. Well, as it rises up, the building becomes lighter and introduces more glass. To mitigate that glass, we have a variety of shading elements and textural fenestration that relates to, not hiding from it, but relates to power lines and power plant. So we're balancing with Tempe's heritage, as well as drawing inspiration from the more industrial context, and then weaving that into an aesthetic that establishes a character that feels like creative office space. So that's the type of tenant that we're really targeting with this development, and the types of spaces that tenants like that are looking for, we think this project will provide. So this view is up, as you can see. So the landscape is kind of faded back so that you can see through it. This is now looking at phase 1. The last view was actually from phase 2. So this is down at essentially you're right, the power lines are right behind you. So as you can see, the base language of the brick is to the west, or sorry, to the left of the screen, that's to the east. And then as we transition around the corner, the building introduces more glass with the vertical fenestration. You can see some of the structural elements that relate to the industrial character. Some zoomed in views showing the various complementary materials, textures. This is something going on there. Yep. North corner of phase 1. So this is showing phase 1 is in the background, phase 2 off to the left in the foreground, and the amenity building is down to the right, and this is the amenity courtyard in the middle. This is the single-story amenity building. So we'll have some active program there that, depending on the users, will dictate what the interior programming of that space is. But the intent is that coffee shop, fitness, conference may be likely program elements to support large users. This view is showing a future potential bridge. So it's something I realized I missed as we were going through the site plan, but in these gaps between the buildings, we have future potential connections that aren't necessarily built in phase 1, but in phase 2, depending on the tenant interest, we have the ability to connect to each of these buildings, so you could serve a very large user. Again, more views from the courtyard. This is the phase 1 building now in the foreground with the phase 2 in the distance. And then I think the last view here. So this one, it's a little bit difficult to see what's happening here, but what this is showing is the phase 3 will eventually be in the foreground here. But initially off the Dorsey alignment, all the phase 1 and 2 developments are set back quite a ways. So that's sort of a quick run through of design methodology for the site and material palette inspiration, and happy to answer any questions for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. You know, since we are in the WebEx world here, it's difficult to figure out how to recognize people for questions. So I guess we'll just go on the whoever jumps in first. Does anybody have any questions for the development team?
Ross, I had a quick question. Are they doing any sort of, for Jason, are you guys doing any kind of building lighting, or how does lighting work on the site?
We are. The buildings, the piers will likely be lit. We have parking lot lighting, and there is the hope that we're working on an agreement, and Manjula, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're hoping that even the power line or the power tower can be lit in some way, but the coordination with APS will be key to resolve that. So that's an outstanding piece. It's not anything that's fixed yet, but our thought is that absolutely you want to be able to light the building so that it has great presence from the street. And then certainly all of the courtyard spaces will be lit to meet both safety and, you know, use throughout the day.
Okay, you know, maybe I'll just go through the individual committee members, and just that way, if I just call on you, and certainly you can feel like you could circle back if a question comes to mind. But Jason Comer, anything on your mind?
No, I think it's a great project. No questions at all, fully in support.
Thank you, Jason. Lisa Roach?
Hi.
Hello, Lisa.
I like the project. I like the transparency. I love the intertwining of history and power poles. I think that's really a unique format. So no, I like what I've seen so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Rudy Blavia, anything on your mind?
No, it looks great. Thanks for the presentation. I think the building's it's a good looking building.
Bill Johns?
Thank you, Ross. No, I think it's a very nice project. I think it'll blend in well in the fabric of Novus. No questions at this time.
Thank you. Ken Mufton?
Thank you, Chairman. No, I do applaud Jason and his team at RSP for bringing this project to this site. I think it's the right product at the right location. I absolutely love the industrial character of this as it relates to that portion of town, and I think it's very appropriate. So I think, again, this is a great fit for Novus, great looking project, and my applause to the design team and the developing team.
Mike Burke, anything else from you?
No, Ross, I think they've done a fantastic job on everything there.
Okay, that just leaves me. I do have just a few questions, but you know, Manjula and Jason and the Wentworth people don't feel like I think this is as much as anything about just to cover some things. I think architecturally the project is absolutely spectacular. You know, a great start for that east of Rural Road. So just some things pretty quick, kind of like a lightning round. So just answer pretty quick. One of the things I saw in the conditions was something about an APS landscape review and something about if they remove up to 10% of the landscaping. Is that all about the power lines, and does APS have some rights beyond just the power lines, or what is that about?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that is about the power lines and APS's rights. We do, APS has some rights as it relates to, I don't know if we have out, I think Greg, well, I'll just tell you, and Greg can pull up the plans if you'd like to see it, but specifically it's the landscaping that's adjacent to that's closest to the substation, and then there's a little bit of landscaping that's underneath the power lines. And the site, if you saw the landscape plan, is very lush, and we anticipate it's actually going to be, and we have a general sense of how many trees, and some of it's about the height of trees, and then shrubbery, and that we've been going back and forth with APS. We presented to you a pretty lush landscape plan, which we think we'll be able to accomplish most of it. It's probably about 20 trees that may have to get moved or shortened. So when we had talked to staff, here we go. When we talked to staff, you can see, I can't use my pointer, I don't think, but so I also would like to come back to in person. But anyway, on the east portion of the site and a little bit along the front underneath the power lines, there's some trees and some other areas that we may need to either work with the staff to change, to make them shorter, or change the tree out or move the trees depending on the final APS review. It's been in APS and going through review for a while. So that condition was a lot about, we wanted to tell the commission that, you know, some of the landscaping may be changing a little. If it amounts to a lot, you know, we're going to continue to talk to the staff. If it amounts to just a couple of trees, we can fix it through our construction plans.
Great. Along the same line.
Chairman, just one, I forgot to mention Obina Kinsley is here too. He was the planner on the project. And there were some other, he could elaborate a little bit on some of the other things with the landscape too, if you needed to, I just wanted to make the committee aware that OB is also on the line.
Very well. No, I think we're fine. Along the same lines in the APS power line easement, is there any plan, or are you even able, because of the restrictions, to do any kind of solar above those surface parking spaces, or is that just a not permissible use in there?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, it's my understanding, we've had that question, that we've talked to them, that is not a permissible use. They don't, as you probably have seen, and you can see it more at Playa, but in some of the other places, they being APS doesn't like, in some places, they don't like a lot of structures underneath their power lines.
Yeah.
That's why surface parking works well, because if something happens, you can just move the cars out and they can do whatever they want. And so we've been restricted kind of on the solar.
Yeah, I figured that. I saw a note about, for those of you that remember the Karsten Golf Course, there was a tunnel under Rio Salado Parkway between the 10th and the 11th hole. I saw a reference that underground access has to be maintained in some manner. What is well, especially in the short term, presumably that's going to be blocked off in some way. What is as it relates to safety and upkeep, is there an obligation relative to that tunnel?
Mr. Chairman, Brian, I guess can correct me, but I don't, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, there's no obligation to, I mean, obligation, not sure what that, where there's no obligation to keep it open. We are trying to work with the ASU and Catalyst are working related to the tunnel. If we can make it work, it still would be great to have it as an underpass. We've talked to the city about it. Some of it depends, that'll be part of, as on this plan as we work through phase 2 and phase 3. And the Wentworth team has talked to Catalyst and ASU about how how it may work on this side. Some of it depends on what happens on the north side. It will certainly be, I think on the Catalyst side, they are maintaining it and it'll be maintained and make sure there's no, construction or danger caused by it. But we're trying to we would like to potentially, I think everybody involved would like to see what opportunities there are for the underpass. And we don't have a full answer, but that's what that condition's about.
Great.
Like it's trying to give us flexibility as we figure out what we're doing.
Great. Just a couple of other things. One is I saw in the packet that CivTech had a traffic impact study, but I thought I might have seen something in the conditions that there was a further traffic impact study. Are you all done with the traffic side of this, or is there more work there?
There's different, they were all done on some portion of the traffic there. As it relates to Dorsey and the left turn lane, we're not done, but that has to do with phase 2. And so, and as you know, we're working with the city, there's a median in the middle, as it relates there, how there's eventually will be a light coming on that site. We'd like to have a left-hand turn light out of it. There's going to be development on the north side of Rio Salado. So, the kind of the movement radius that's happening on Rio Salado will change as things develop. So I think with phase 2, we're still continuing to talk to the city to kind of work through kind of how traffic will work. But that's what that condition's about too.
Right. And then just one more thing, kind of a two-part question. One is, where are you at in the ARC process, the architectural review process? And what is the projected time frame for a groundbreaking for this project?
I will I don't know, Tim or Jason, do you want to answer? Well, the answer to the ARC is, Jason can answer that in terms of, we've obviously had this plan reviewed by ARC, and ARC has approved this plan to go through the JRC process. After the JRC, they will go back to ARC and show them what the JRC has approved. And then as you start to move forward towards submitting construction plan. So that's our ARC process. ARC has usually reviewed this plan several times before it comes to you. So they have certainly done that. In terms of groundbreaking, I don't know, Jason or Tim, do you have a general time frame?
Many members for the time tonight, but our plan is to break ground by the end of the year. We're in accelerated review position with ARC and the city on CDs. So we're excited about this project. We think the timing will actually work out really well for the market. As you see, these larger corporations really embrace moving back into the office. But we should be done. It's probably in early first quarter of 2023 delivery.
Thank you. Okay, just any other questions from the committee before we vote? Hearing none, I'm looking for a motion on regular agenda item number 5, the request for a development plan review and approval of a 3-story building, Novus Parcel 4F at 1337 East Rio Salado Parkway. Is there a motion?
Chairman.
Go ahead, Rudy.
I vote motion to approve.
Motion by Rudy Bellavia. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Ken Lufkin. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I guess I'll go through you individually so we know how people voted. Jason Comer?
Jason Comer, I vote yes.
Lisa Roach,
I vote yes.
Mike Burke,
Yes,
Ken Lufkin,
Yes.
Bill Johns,
Yes.
Rudy Belavia,
Yes.
and the chair, I vote yes. The motion is approved, 7-0. Thank you for the presentation, all of you from Wentworth, RSP, and Mongela from Gamage and Burnham. We appreciate it. Good luck with the project, and we look forward to seeing the groundbreaking.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda is committee member announcements. Does anybody have anything to share or announce this evening? There's not a lot going on, I get it. And last thing, Suparna, any staff announcements? Any thoughts about a May meeting yet? Suparna?
Sorry, Chairman, I keep talking without unmuting myself.
Yeah, well,
So Chairman, we are working on the next agenda. I'll send a notification, or Joanna will send a notification as soon as we make sure the date, scheduled date is Wednesday, May 5th. So if there is a meeting, we will be informing you about that.
yeah, there's nothing like Cinco de Mayo on WebEx. That sounds like a fantastic, fantastic party. Well, thank you all. Hopefully we are getting close to the end of the WebEx meetings. I think we probably are. So with that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Chairman, actually, you don't need to.
We don't need that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Very well, then then I will just declare we are adjourned. Thank you all. Have a great evening. Thanks, Suparna. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
thank you.
Thank you.